Martin Luther King Jr. by Savannah McPherson. On January 15, 1929, Martin Luther King Jr. was born the middle child of Michael King Sr. and Alberta Williams King. Martin's childhood was a normal and happy upbringing. He and his siblings learned to play the piano from their mom and were guided by the spiritual teachings of their dad and grandfather. Growing up, Martin attended Booker T. Washington High School. He skipped both 9th and 12th grade, and he entered Morehouse College in Atlanta at the age of 15 in 1944. He was a very popular student, but seemed to be unmotivated as he floated through the first 2 years of school. When Martin was younger, he questioned religion and kind of felt uncomfortable with the emotional displays of worship. But in his junior year, he took a Bible class, renewed his faith, and began to envision a career in ministry. In the fall of his senior year, he told his father about his decision. As Martin's life continued, he finally met the love of his life. On June 18, 1953, he married Coretta Scott. The ceremony took place on the lawn of Coretta's home in Alabama. Martin's father performed the service. Coretta's sister was her maid of honor, and Martin's brother was the best man. Martin spent a lot of time in Alabama. In fact, in the spring of '63, he organized a demonstration where entire families attended. The city police turned dogs and fire hoses on the demonstrators, and Martin was arrested with a large number of his supporters. It gained nationwide attention. During their time in jail, Martin and his supporters were making plans for a massive demonstration on the nation's capital, asking for a peaceful change. On August 28, 1963, the historic March on Washington drew more than 200,000 people in the shadow of Lincoln Memorial. King gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech here. Finally, in 1964, Martin Luther King Jr. was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his dynamic leadership of the civil rights movement and his steadfast commitment to achieving racial justice through a nonviolent action. At age 35, he became the youngest man and only African American to receive the award. While he didn't stop after receiving the Nobel Prize, he did grow tired of the marches, going to jail, and living under the constant threat of death. On April 3rd, he gave his final speech. The next day, he was assassinated while standing on the outside balcony of a local motel. He was struck by a bullet that was shot by James Earl Ray, who was later sentenced to 99 years in prison. After his assassination, Martin was initially buried at Southview Cemetery in Atlanta, near the grave of his parents. But when Mrs. King built the King Center, she moved her husband's body next to Ebenezer's Baptist Church. Now he is buried at the Martin Luther King Jr. National Historic Park here in Atlanta, Georgia. Martin Luther King Jr. was a wonderful man. Even years after his death, he is still the most widely known African American leader of his era. He has been honored with a national holiday, schools, public buildings, and several memorials named after him. He was a great leader that will never be forgotten.